Today I'm going to introduce you to RStudio. I suggest always using RStudio, so I'm just going to start typing for R. Here's my RStudio. Okay, you'll notice when it opens there are a few things here. I have my console. Notice I have a blinking cursor here and a line. This is where we start giving it commands. Now R is basically just a fancy calculator, so I could do something like 3 plus 4 and it will tell me that my answer is 7. Notice this 1, that just tells me my first number and my answer tells me it's my first number. You can ignore that. Okay, there's other things you can notice here. We have environment and history tabs. Environment is nice if you want to look at your data. You have history, will tell you the history of everything you've done in case you want to do it again. You have various things over here that are useful to like help. What we're going to start by doing is we're going to download something from online. So to do this, I'm going to type source, and then I'm going to start typing the actual address. So I'm going to pause this while I type it. Okay, so let's see if I managed to type in the URL correctly. Nope, I did not. So I see where I made my typo. Now if I push the up arrow key, it will actually go back to bring my last command up, so I don't have to type it again. So let's try again. Okay, so it doesn't look like anything happened, but notice over here environment and now has my present. So I can just click on that and it will show me what my data looks like. So down the left we have which entry it is, just like in Excel. We have the year, we have the number of boys that were born, the number of girls that were born. You'll see that another way I could do it is I could just type view and present and it brings up my table. It's called present because that was the name of my data set. You can see over here under data that my data set is called present. Sometimes we might want to see the summary of our data, so I can type in summary and the name of my data set, which again is present. You can see the minimum, first quartile, median, mean, third quartile, and max of my year, and also it does that for the boys and for the girls. Now let's say we want to look at a histogram. Well, before I go and look at the histogram, notice in my data set there are 3 different variables. There's the variable of year, the variable of boys, and the variable of girls. If I try and tell R that I want to do a histogram, it's going to be confused because it doesn't know which variable I'm interested in. So I do need to tell it which variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type HIST for histogram. Then I'm going to type the name of my data set, which is present. Notice as I start typing present, it will actually pop up saying, oh, I think you mean present. And if I push tab, I can select it without typing it all. Now here's the most difficult part. You have to do a $sign and then tell it which variable. I can type boys, or I could just use the arrow to select it and tab. Notice off to the right here, it did a histogram of the variable boys. So it says present $sign boys. So that means data set present variable boys. And that's a very nice histogram. That's all I had to do. Super easy. A box plot turns out to be just as easy. We're going to type boxplot, and I'm going to start typing the name of my data set, present, and I need the variable boys, and here's my box plot. At this point, if you were going to turn in your homework, what I would do is I would go to the snapshot tool, or snipping tool I guess it's called now, and just do a little snip of it. There's my snip. I can save it, or I can copy it, and then I can just paste it straight into a Word document or whatever else you want to work with. There are a few other things we could do, like we could use a scatter plot. A scatter plot's pretty simple. We can do a plot and then we need an X variable. So let's do year as our X variable. So you still have to type the data set so it knows what you're talking about. And let's say year. So that's our X variable. Comma, then I'll do my data set and tell it to do the variable boys. Notice I get this nice scatter plot. So those are just some very simple things you can do with R. Now you might remember that we said R is just a basic calculator. We can even have it do things like add 2 of our variables together. Like what if we wanted to add together the number of boys and the number of girls to get a total? So I could do something like, say, present boys plus present girls. So that told it to add the two variables. And notice it gives me all of the results. You'll see these numbers 1, 11, 21. That just tells you what number you're on. So this is the first entry, this is the 11th entry. It's just a way to keep track of your data. Now, I might actually want, since I made this variable, if I ever want to use it again, it might be nice to name it. So let's say I want to name it total. So I'll type total, and I'll do total equals present boys plus present girls. Now it's made a new variable called total. You'll see over here in my environment, I have this new variable called total with all of the values. Now, let's say I want to look at total. I can maybe look at the summary of total, and it's just like any other variable. You will notice that I didn't have to tell it which data set because I just barely made it, and so it knows that what I'm talking about. So here's the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the mean, third quartile, and max. Now, the last thing I'll tell you about is how to get help. If you know the name of a function, okay, so for example, we used plot. So if you know the name of the function, you can type question mark and plot, and off to the side, it will tell you the official documentation for that function, plot. If you don't know the name of what you're looking for, then you can come over here to the right to help, and you could search for something like scatterplot. And it will give you some suggestions for what to look at for scatterplot. Now, I don't actually find this the easiest way to get help. I find just going to Google and looking for R and scatterplot to bring some simpler results, but it does have this built-in help. So again, up here, this is where you do a few things, like you'll see data sets pop up here. You could also write a script, which is where if you want to save this to come back to it later, you can save some scripts. Over here in the environment, you can import data. You can look at the data sets you have, and there's also history. So I find history very useful. So I can come up and look, oh yeah, I needed to look at that box plot again because I forgot it. So I can just hit enter and make another box plot. That's basically it. If you want, when you try and close it, you could save it and then again come back to it later.